Thank you so much to everyone who has come today to learn more about the Unified Housing Strategy. Before we hop into this presentation, I do want to acknowledge and say thank you to my colleagues, Daryl Hill and Angel Sims, who are on the call with us today. They are going to help us with monitoring the chat and monitoring any questions that come through at the end. And thank you so much for being here. So to kick it off, thank you again for joining us for this public presentation. To set some ground rules, please wait for questions and discussions until after the presentation is complete. And please be respectful of others and allow everyone an opportunity to speak. And please provide constructive feedback. And can everyone hear me all right? Just want to check before we get too deep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then I wanted to put the feedback questions that we'll talk about at the end here at the front, just to get those in front of you to think about when we get to the discussion and feedback portion at the end throughout this presentation. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to take a look at that, and then we will continue on and get started. Okay, so we'll start with an overview of the Unified Housing Strategy and its development process, and then hop into talking about what is affordable and what the Housing Division defines as affordable housing. And then we'll get into the content of the Unified Housing Strategy after setting the stage there by first going over our key findings and then looking at how much housing we need as a city over the next 10 years. And then hop into our strategies and actions and talk about implementation and how we're going to move forward together. And then we'll have that feedback session at the end and let you know about more opportunities to provide feedback throughout the month. Okay, so to kick things off with the Unified Housing Strategy, this is a call to collective ownership. Metro can't do this all alone, and furthering these strategies and actions will require constant collaboration from all of the key partners from our public, private, philanthropic, and nonprofit sectors. The Unified Housing Strategy is meant to align our systems and resources to create new housing, preserve existing housing, keep people in their homes, and connect people, residents, service providers to resources. And this strategy needs to be responsive to market conditions and stay as a living document as we continue towards implementation. This effort could not be done alone, and so we want to give a huge thank you to all of our public and private partners who helped create this Unified Housing Strategy, from our consultant team of HR&A Advisors, MEPR Agency, Pillars Development, LLC, and Spencer Rhodes Consulting, LLC, to our technical committee who was made up of Metro departments and agencies to provide data and information through the development process. And a special thank you to all of our community ambassadors who helped us with our community listening sessions in the summer of 2024 and has helped us get this message out to our Nashvillians. So we appreciate all of the work and time that you've put into this effort as well. So the Unified Housing Strategy is a combination of data analysis and public input. So the Unified Housing Strategy looks at our housing market and our housing data, as well as reviewing existing programs in our ecosystem and best practices that we've seen throughout the nation. But also over the summer, we spent a lot of time listening to the community. We held multiple listening sessions, engaged with residents across neighborhoods, and connected with people with a wide range of housing experiences. We heard from renters, homeowners, people facing housing stability, service providers, developers, and our Metro partners. And what we heard helped shape the Unified Housing Strategy and is meant to be built with their voices at the center. And so today we're excited to share the strategy, and this is a chance to check whether this strategy reflects what you and your neighbors shared with us during that process. The Unified Housing Strategy is created or made up of 4 core components. So the first component is the executive summary. This is a standalone document that gives you an overview of what is in the Unified Housing Strategy. But if you do have the time to read through the whole Unified Housing Strategy, you'll find information on the development process, more robust data on our key findings from both the community engagement and data analysis, as well as an ecosystem resource regulatory analysis, as well as our updated housing demand and these strategies and actions, including our performance metrics. Meant to accompany the Unified Housing Strategy is our 10-year implementation plan. So this lists every strategy in action and identifies all the responsible entities and key partners and prioritizes our actions. This is our roadmap for advancing our housing solutions. And then finally, annually, at the beginning of each new fiscal year, Metro will produce an annual policy priorities document that will help focus the UHS goals for that coming fiscal year. And it's important to bring up the concurrent housing studies and plans that are occurring right now, as there are quite a few of them and they can start to overlap. But we'll start with talking about the housing and infrastructure study. This is a regulatory document that is looking at land use and zoning and our infrastructure capacity and ability to put housing and looking at those elements. While the Unified Housing Strategy is taking a comprehensive look at our affordability challenges and looking for tools and policies that we can implement to address those challenges, as well as provide us with our estimated need for housing in the coming years. And then finally, MDHA is also doing their annual action plan update right now that is looking for information on proposed uses for their federal funds, including Community Development Block Grant, the Home Program, the ESG program, and the Housing Opportunities for People with AIDS program for the upcoming year. So there are these 3 studies and plans, so we wanted to make sure that we differentiated them. And before we can talk about what is in the Unified Housing Strategy, we should also talk about some existing state legislative restrictions, which include mandating affordability in zoning requirements or through rent control or through private sales. We have recently been allowed to create voluntary incentive programs for affordable housing that you can see more information on in Action 14 of the Unified Housing Strategy. But we're also limited in our ability to introduce increased tenant protections above what is set at the state level. We do have a little bit more flexibility in implementing protections and requirements, but that comes with properties that receive public funds. And so you can find more information on those efforts in Action 35 of the Unified Housing Strategy. And so now that we've done an overview of the UHS and the development process, we need to talk about what is affordable when we're referencing this. So there are a variety of definitions set at the federal, state, and local level. But when the Housing Division refers to affordable housing, we mean housing that is restricted to households earning at or below 80% of the area median income. The area median income is calculated annually by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and this income measurement is used to set affordability requirements for those federal, state, and local affordable housing programs. It's important to note that the AMI for Nashville includes a 10-county census, including surrounding counties such as Rutherford, Williamson, and Wilson counties. Now, what is the area median income for Nashville-Davidson County? In 2024, the area median income, or 100% AMI, for Metro Nashville was $74,850 for a 1-person household, as well it was $106,900 for a 4-person household. When we're looking at our 80% and below, 80% of the area median income is $59,850 for a single person and $85,500 for a 4-person household. The Housing Division receives this data from HUD on an annual basis and publishes them on our webpage on nashville.gov and on the Affordable Housing Dashboard. We have recently received all of the data for 2025 AMI levels, and the Housing Division will post those in June. And so now that we know what the area median income is, it's important to look at who needs affordable housing and who are we talking about when we're talking about our neighbors that are earning less than or equal to 80% of the area median income. And these are our essential workers making the city run. So our family social workers who earn on average $57,000 a year require affordable housing around $1,425 a month. And that's less than 80% of the area median income, while our employees who are working full-time at 40 hours, earning minimum wage, earn on average $22,000 a year, which is lower than that 30% AMI, with affordable housing costs being at roughly around $550 a month. Okay, so now that we've set the stage with an overview of the development process and an understanding of affordability and affordable housing when we're referencing it throughout this presentation, we can hop into our content of the Unified Housing Strategy. So the key findings include 6 major themes that we saw through our data and community engagement analysis. So those themes include an increased housing demand, a lack of affordability, a lack of housing choice, inaccessibility of home ownership, risk of housing loss, and difficulty navigating programs and resources. So the following slides will go a little bit more into depth on these key themes to give some more information. To start out talking about our increased housing demand, Nashville is an exciting place to live. Our strong economy and job opportunities are core drivers of demand for living in Nashville. And uh, that's an important driver of demand, but we should also look at household formation. So there have been changes in the number of households and their household size, as households are now at the lowest they've ever been, with the fewest amount of people in a household than ever before. And so if you think about 10 people looking for one housing opportunity, they're all living in one house, a 10-person household. There you go, there's that house. But now you have 10 people into 2 households of 5. That's 2 people competing for a housing opportunity, and that has an effect on demand for and affordability. But when we're talking about demand, we also have to talk about supply. We've seen an overall drop in housing production following the 2008 recession, which has constrained housing supply across all income ranges, but has specifically constrained housing supply for housing that's affordable for households at 60% or below the area median income. And when we look at this figure, we can see the number of households and the number of homes at each income band broken down by area median income. And so we can see that for those earning less than 30% of the area median income, the number of households is much higher than the number of homes. And that can also be seen at the high end of the spectrum for 100% or more of the area median income. But one key finding from this figure is when we look at the 30 to 60% of the area median income and 60 to 80% of the area median income, we see that the supply of homes in the 30 to 60% band is decreasing following 2012, while the supply of homes affordable to those in 60 to 80% of the area median income are increasing at that same time. And this suggests that the housing that was previously affordable to those in the 30 to 60 band has been priced up to now being affordable to those at the 60 to 80% band, thus constraining more supply down the road. Moving on to a lack of affordability, this is an issue that both renters and homeowners are are dealing with, as housing costs are increasingly out of reach for our low and moderate income residents. And this is leading many residents to make tough choices between housing costs and other essentials like food and healthcare. And we see that our housing costs, again, for both rental and home ownership, have grown faster than the median household incomes over the past 5 years. And this figure on the screen shows the gap between our average rent and a rent affordable to the median renting household and rent affordable to the median householder without a college degree. And you can see that that gap is pretty wide. But when we're talking about a lack of affordability, we also have to talk about cost burden. And so being cost burden means that a family or household is spending more than 30% of their gross monthly income on their housing costs. And we see that this is an issue of impacting both owners and renters. But this has disproportionate impacts on specific cohorts. So we see for our single parent households that 74% of them are cost burdened. And when we look at communities of color, 54% of Black renters and 52% of Hispanic renters are cost burdened compared to 47% of white renters. And we see that Hispanic homeowners experience an even higher cost burden than their Black and white homeowner counterparts. When we look at cost burden, we should also look at intersections between being cost burden and other financial impacts on a resident's life. So one community listening session that we hosted with AgeWell really showed this phenomenon where a older adult shared that they have difficulty surviving on a fixed income while caring for her children, as her Social Security just wasn't enough to cover both her needs and the children's. Related to a lack of affordability comes a lack of housing choice. Um, One quote that we had from our community listening sessions was, "I would like to continue to live in Nashville, but the cost of housing and other necessities has me considering moving to another county, which would increase my commute time and gas expenses." So this is what we call drive until you qualify, and is also another example of making those difficult decisions when you're looking at your housing choices and your housing affordability. And when we look at affordability and lack of housing choice, we saw that housing needs do not go far beyond affordability. During our listening sessions, most participants could only name affordability as their primary need, highlighting that many are so focused on securing affordable housing that they overlook other important factors like location, access to schools, jobs, or transportation. And I should say that they're forced to overlook them because they have to look for their affordable option first. But this also has challenges for vulnerable populations. Another community member at a listening session held by Stand Up Nashville shared their experience years out of prison for a nonviolent crime, and they still struggle to find housing as many landlords automatically reject them and other applicants with a criminal background during the screening process, which forces individuals to settle for housing that may have safety and or quality issues as well. And speaking of quality issues, we see that a lack of housing choice can lead to living in substandard conditions. As we see residents in these housing units with substandard conditions have difficulty getting their landlords to address issues, and some even fear retaliation, like being forced to leave their affordable home if they made complaints. And when we talk about vulnerable populations, that also includes our disabled Nashvillians who maybe need accessible housing, such as a housing that is able to be utilized with a wheelchair. And we heard this at a community listening session held by the Tennessee Disability Coalition, where a woman who uses a wheelchair shared her frustration in finding accessible housing, as she needed a unit near a bus line, but despite searching for hours each week, she couldn't find a suitable option. And there's a misalignment of our housing production with our community needs. And so we see there's a lack of housing for single adults and larger families, and new housing production is focused on our high cost areas like downtown, which doesn't meet the diverse needs of our community. And this figure here shows the number of households with 4 or more people and the number of rental homes with 3 or more bedrooms. And we can see for households in at or below 60% of the area median income, there is a mismatch in what is available and what is needed at that level. But there's also geographic disparities in housing availability. Much of Nashville is naturally occurring affordable housing, which is housing that is affordable without any public subsidy or income restriction, but just affordable due to location, age, or other factors. And these naturally occurring affordable housing units exist outside of our urban core in areas like Antioch, Madison, and Donaldson, while our income restricted housing is also clustered in areas outside of the urban core with high concentrations in the northern and southern parts of the city. And so I know we've talked about both rental and homeownership issues, but we do really want to focus on the inaccessibility of home ownership as well and highlight that need. So we see that many potential first-time home buyers are being priced out of the market despite a strong desire to settle and build families here in Nashville. And some are even considering moving elsewhere for more affordable options. And this is due to home ownership costs becoming very expensive and rising sharply, making it increasingly difficult to enter that market. 91% of our new homes are single family homes, which are more expensive to build, thus increasing the price to buy and increasing the barrier to home ownership. And we can also see a challenge for older adult homeowners who feel stuck in their homes, who may want to downsize to a more accessible home or move to a different part of the city, but are unable due to the high relocation costs and our current housing prices. And we see in Nashville or Davidson County that home values have grown 40% since 2019, while incomes have only grown by 19%. And our average home value of $421,000 a year exceeds what is affordable for the median household, which is roughly around $329,000 a year. And this creates a $90,000 affordability gap. And when you think about the people below that median household, that affordability gap becomes even more increased. And when looking at home ownership, it is also important to look at the disparities in home ownership access. So when we even after controlling for income, white borrowers have a 72% mortgage origination rate compared to 56% of our Black borrowers. And we see that Black households are more likely to be denied loans for home ownership. And this figure here shows the differences between the median home value for our Hispanic and Black households in Nashville and our Asian Pacific Islander and white households. And you can see that that gap is pretty stark, as well as the maximum affordable home value with the maximum affordable home value being much lower for our Black households than compared to Hispanic and Asian Pacific Islander and white households. And when we look at the median home price, that maximum affordable home value has a dramatic effect on our Black households here in Nashville. But now that we've talked about getting into housing, we also have to talk about the risk of housing loss. Both homeowners and renters are increasingly worried about losing their homes due to rising rental costs or rising property values in their surrounding neighborhoods. And when we look at eviction data, eviction filings have increased by 45% compared to our pre-pandemic levels, with the highest rate recorded in February of 2024 at 1,478 filings. And even if tenants win in an eviction case, eviction judgments can still create long-term barriers to securing future housing. And our current eviction data doesn't specify the reasons for filings, but it does underscore the pressing need for eviction prevention strategies and interventions. We also see displacement due to economic pressures, where displacement can occur as housing costs rise or properties are redeveloped. And in stronger neighborhoods, private investment can drive up property values, pushing out existing residents And in other markets, investment often leads to replacement of older, affordable homes with new, expensive housing beyond the reach of long-term residents. And these two figures on the screen show a displacement risk ratio and areas in Davidson County with the highest displacement risk rate or pressure. These both come from a market value analysis done by the Reinvestment Fund. And we can see on both maps there is pressure for displacement in northern part of Nashville and of the county, as well as southern Nashville and southeast of the county as well. And so we need to be able to support our homeowners and our renters who are at risk of losing their housing stability. And then finally, we also have a difficulty navigating programs and resources. Programs are difficult to navigate as there's no one place where people can go to find the resources that they need. And this is something that both residents and service providers shared. There is a need for a singular platform or singular place that is user-friendly where people can go to find out information about housing resources. Along with programs being difficult to navigate, there's also a limited awareness of the available programs and if a program is available to them. So we saw that many residents are unaware of housing security programs such as emergency rental assistance, property tax freeze programs, and the eviction right to counsel program. And residents who were aware of these resources often learned through their personal networks and not through a centralized support service. So those were our key findings from the Unified Housing Strategy, but we also have our housing needs, our housing demand estimate as well. So HRNA Advisors estimates that Nashville will need over 90,000 new homes in the next 10 years, coming out to roughly 9,000 new units annually. And this does include both market rate and affordable housing needs, but there may be a demand for over half of these new homes to be for sale as opposed to rental, as Nashville's availability of homes for sale has been well below what is considered a healthy supply level since 2008. And as we see our trends for demand, there is a desire for home ownership for sale properties. Nashville has made our substantial gains in our rental supply due to our dense construction in downtown and midtown as well. But there are still gaps, and if we think back to that figure that I had showed earlier with the availability or supply of homes for the supply of home or households, we see that big gap for households earning 30% of the area median income or below. And so it's estimated that we'll need to add 20,000 units affordable to families at 60% of the area median income, with a further priority for earning less than 30% of the area median income. And we see that the gap at the 30% or below of the area median income has a ripple effect across the housing market, where households in that income band are forced to rent homes priced for higher income individuals, limiting the availability of rental housing affordable to households at less than or equal to 60% of the area median income. And that effect compounds as it goes up. And now for the fun part, the unified housing strategies and actions. So how do we get there? Housing is a continuum, and a housing ecosystem is composed of key actors working across this continuum. A strong housing ecosystem also has the resources and tools necessary to play their part and serve Nashvillians throughout their housing experience. This includes Metro, but the success of our housing continuum requires private, nonprofit, and philanthropic support to provide the supply of affordable and market rate housing, to provide supportive services and resources for renters and owners, such as case management or home repair programs, and also for providing rental assistance and support for existing programs as well. In order to do this, all partners need to have a unified strategy that they can collaborate on. And I wanted to bring this figure up again about who needs affordable housing when we're looking at our housing continuum. Again, these are our essential neighbors that make Nashville run, from our social workers, our hairstylists, our hotel clerks, and all the employees who are working in our city and in our county that need affordable housing for them. The Unified Housing Strategy is composed of 7 major strategies that center around aligning our housing ecosystem and resources to create new housing options, preserve our existing housing stock, prevent displacement of Nashvillians, and connecting residents, developers, and service providers to resources. And we can't accomplish all of those goals without and strategies without a robust and unified housing ecosystem that can align our available tools and resources to strategically deploy our tools in our toolbox. So to start things off, we have strategy A, which includes enhancing and aligning Nashville's housing ecosystem to comprehensively and collectively address our housing needs. So this will focus on creating a high functioning ecosystem within Nashville to address our housing needs, with key actions including creating a position in the mayor's office to provide executive level coordination, increasing our interagency collaboration and accountability, expanding the city's capacity to lead and implement housing initiatives, and enhancing our supports for development partners, including small and emerging developers. And this will serve all current and future Nashvillians seeking stable, affordable housing. And this matters because addressing ongoing fragmentation of Metro's housing efforts will allow us to become a more high functioning ecosystem and respond to our housing needs. Strategy B, optimize and grow financial and resource support for affordable housing across our public, private, and philanthropic sectors. And this will focus on expanding and diversifying our funding and other resources to support all of our affordable housing initiatives. And so key actions will include maximizing the use of our existing tools, such as the Barnes Fund, building stronger partnerships with philanthropic and corporate sectors, establishing underwriting capacity, building and supporting partnerships with institutional landholders, such as our faith-based institutions, and exploring new and sustainable funding sources for affordable housing and homelessness services. This will serve Nashvillians in need of affordable housing, particularly those earning 60% of the area median income or below. And this matters because rising housing costs require optimization of our existing programs, and federal, state, and local funds alone are not sufficient. This will strengthen our ability to deliver more housing for low and moderate income residents. Now, strategy C, create a range of new and affordable housing choices for all Nashvillians as appropriate across the county. This will focus on increasing Nashville's housing supply with a strong emphasis on expanding affordable rental options for low to moderate income residents. Key actions for this strategy include evaluating and adjusting zoning and land use policies to boost housing production, developing a mixed income housing finance toolkit, leveraging publicly owned land for affordable and mixed income housing development, prioritizing deeply affordable housing in our existing housing programs, and prioritizing new income restricted housing for vulnerable residents such as families with children, older adults, individuals with disabilities, and justice impacted individuals. So this will serve all Nashvillians, again, with that focus on those earning low to moderate incomes, and with a focus also on vulnerable populations in need of deeply affordable rental housing. The demand for our housing exceeds our supply, which causes our rising prices and reduces affordability. And a lack of affordable housing forces residents, again, to choose between their basic needs, and a healthy housing market must match home prices to local wages. Strategy D, keep homeowners in their homes and create more opportunities for sustainable home ownership and wealth creation. This will focus on expanding access to affordable home ownership and supporting existing homeowners to promote stability and generational wealth. So key actions in this strategy include leveraging land use policies to support the construction of home ownership units, directing our public funds towards households with the greatest barriers to home ownership, and expanding and strengthening programs that assist current homeowners with maintenance and affordability. This strategy will serve populations historically facing systemic barriers to home ownership and low and moderate income households priced out of homeownership opportunities. This also will serve current homeowners, especially older adults and those with limited incomes, struggling with home maintenance and housing costs. This matters because homeownership again remains a critical path to wealth building, and homeownership is increasingly unaffordable for households earning under $100,000. Homeownership rates for Black and Hispanic families are significantly lower than white families, and supporting existing homeowners helps prevent displacement, especially among older adults and vulnerable populations. Strategy E, create permanent housing options for persons experiencing or at risk of homelessness. This will focus on creating and prioritizing permanent housing options for individuals and families transitioning out of homelessness, with key actions including advancing the Homelessness Planning Council's strategic plan, prioritizing vouchers for those transitioning out of or at risk of homelessness, exploring funding sources for rental assistance and supportive services, and developing a specific strategic plan to create more permanent supportive housing for those with complex needs. This will serve individuals and families currently experiencing homelessness with a focus on those at risk of experiencing chronic homelessness. And this strategy matters because people experiencing homelessness have urgent housing needs that require a focused approach, and homelessness inflow outpaces exits at a rate of 3 to 1. Permanent supportive housing is also a proven solution to supporting individuals experiencing chronic homelessness with complex needs, and so a dedicated permanent supportive housing strategy will help guide collaboration and investment across our sectors. Strategy F, preserve and protect long-term housing affordability and stability. This will focus on ensuring that Nashville's current and future housing stock is affordable to Nashvillians and remains affordable for years to come. Key actions will include prioritizing projects that provide long-term or perpetual affordability, such as community land trusts, social housing, long-term ground leases, and implementing policies that promote long-term affordability of both new and existing income-restricted housing. We can also use the Catalyst Fund to support housing preservation efforts and maintain and monitor a countywide database of deed-restricted affordable properties. This serves households living in or reliant on income-restricted or naturally occurring affordable housing, and this matters because preserving existing affordable housing is often more cost-effective than building new housing. Many income-restricted properties also risk becoming unaffordable as their restrictions expire, and protecting our existing housing stock ensures continued stability for its current residents as well. Finally, strategy G, strengthen housing security for renters and improve access to resources for all Nashvillians. This will focus on improving access to housing information and legal protections to help residents stay housed and navigate housing challenges more effectively. Key actions include strengthening tenant protections in publicly subsidized housing, supporting the eviction right to counsel program, increasing awareness of fair housing and supporting fair housing efforts, improving access to housing resources for residents by strengthening and expanding Hub Nashville, and also expanding language access for housing programs and resources. This will serve Nashvillians facing housing challenges, including those at risk of evictions or struggling with affordability issues. And this matters because quick access to accurate information and support during a housing crisis can prevent harmful outcomes like eviction or homelessness. And existing support programs are helpful, but many residents are unaware of them or struggle to access them. And rising housing costs are making it harder for many Nashvillians to remain stably housed, meaning these resources need to be available easily for them to remain secure. Okay, so those were the unified housing strategies and a few of the key actions. I do want to refer to the implementation plan that goes through all of the strategies and actions and provides, again, all the leads, the public agencies, the private partners that we will need, and the resources and timeline expected for implementing those actions. This strategy requires, again, collective ownership of all of the strategies and actions to address our housing challenges and collaboration among all of us. Our long-term success relies on all of our partners stepping up and strengthening our coordination among public agencies and between our public agencies and the private sector. We require support from the philanthropic and private sectors and need access to reliable housing data with expanded expertise across departments and increased capacity of our private partners. The priorities of today also may not be the priorities of tomorrow. The Unified Housing Strategy is intended to be a living strategy that can adapt to changes in the economy, policy, and funding, and growing uncertainty around federal funding and the state of the economy demand adaptable solutions. Again, Metro will prepare an annual policy priorities document to help guide Metro's focus on UHS goals for each new fiscal year. And these priorities will be based on our progress on the strategy's performance metrics, our ongoing public engagement, and any shifts in the economy, funding, and policy that require us to focus on a specific goal or section more importantly. And so now we would like to hear from you. How can you provide feedback? You can join a public presentation just like you all are today. So thank you again for joining today. And please share this opportunity with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues. But we do have a few more presentations throughout this month. On Tuesday, May 27th, that we have a presentation at the Housing Trust Fund Commission, and we will have another virtual public presentation the week on Thursday, May 29th at 6 to 7:30 p.m. Please also sign up for our office hours. These can be found on our website with a bookable link where you will receive a Teams meeting invite for a 30-minute appointment with a member of the Housing Division staff to talk more about the Unified Housing Strategy, answer any questions you may have, and really provide that feedback in a different format. So please share that information with your neighbors, your family, and your friends as well. Finally, we also have a public feedback form. So we do ask that once you review the Unified Housing Strategy documents, to please complete this feedback form that can be found at nashville.gov/UHS or by scanning the QR code to the right. The feedback form is open until May 30th of this year, and we look forward to hearing your feedback through that form. But we also have our feedback questions from before that we can use to start conversation here. So I believe that someone may have their hand up in the chat. If we want to refer or have Susie ask her question quick, because I think it's been up for a while. Let's do that and then go into our feedback questions here.
Asking, rather than making comments here, asking questions here, probably best to submit them via in writing via that email address.
Yep, that would be great. And then also through that feedback form.
Great. Okay. I'll do that. Just kind of interested in homelessness and the luck that we've had lately, which is horrible luck because it's COVID funds, ARP funding, that has expanded the amount of rental opportunities to homeless folks. But we are seeing some real problems out there with behavior of those tenants and potential evictions of that very affordable housing that this community needs most. And so that supportive services that is sort of a common thread through these slides is critical, and it's got to be the kind that is kind of unseen in Nashville. It's got to be there when these folks need it, because otherwise those units either will be lost or these people have to move and move and move. So it's been a harder row to hoe than I think all of us expected, and those services are going to be critical to make housing last and to increase housing retention in those rental units by homeless folks.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and I look forward to your feedback in the email at the Unified Housing Strategy at nashville.gov and through that feedback form that can be found on our website as well. But thank you. Okay, so we'll kick things off with our first feedback question, which is, which part of the strategy feels most relevant or helpful for your current housing situation or the work that you do? Marina has her hand up. Can we ask her to unmute?
Um, well, I can say that as a resident, I certainly cannot afford to buy a home in Nashville, at least within a reasonable commuting distance, as you said before. But as a professional, I'm an architect, and we have done work with MDHA and Metro for affordable housing. So um, I love that there's a very unified approach to trying to solve this problem, and we would love to provide as much as we can as well. So it does feel very relevant to me as a professional.
Thank you for sharing. Do we have any other hands up in the chat? I think maybe Dan. We asked for Dan Eisenstein.
I'm a former judge here in Nashville, retired judge, who helped start the mental health court many years ago, and have stayed involved in that area since my retirement, and still work as a senior judge downtown. The one part that struck me in the presentation that is very relevant is first what Susie said, that there's a huge need for supportive housing. That's in there, but there is just a tremendous need for that, particularly for people with mental health issues who are coming out of psychiatric hospitals, who are, in many cases, 1,000 of them last year wound up at the mission, at the Nashville mission, and we've been working with them, trying to help them out. The other thing is that the part in having people represented in court on evictions, which is in your strategy, I think that's a huge issue that needs to be expanded, because if you want to keep people in their housing, somebody's got to be there to help these folks. A lot of folks are either don't show up or are unrepresented and have no ability to really work with landlords. And I think that's a huge part of this strategy that I would certainly support, along with the ability to get some funds to help them stay in at least until they can get their act together and have their jobs. Sometimes people lose their jobs and are in between jobs, and they just need a little help on that. So those are two things that I think are very, very important that are in the plan. Thank you for letting me comment, and thank you for the presentation.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that experience and elevating those needs in the strategy as well. I think we have a question from Carrie in the chat as well. Carrie, would you like to raise your hand and speak, or we can just answer or review your question in the chat as well? Can we have Carrie request to unmute?
Yeah, I'm just here as well to learn more about the housing options for those experiencing homelessness. Particularly was hoping to see something around or hear more, because I did read through the plan, but hear more about youth who may be entering the workforce. I'm not talking about youth who have gone to college entering the youth. Youth leaving high school entering the workforce or aging out of foster care. Didn't hear about that, but I know they fit into some other categories, but certainly would love, as it expands, to have more details on the supports that would be there as well.
Oh, that's great. Yes, thank you for sharing that as a piece that we can look into more in depth for youth coming out of foster care or youth entering the workforce. right away. Thank you for bringing that up in those issues.
Thank you.
Well, then I think our next person is Kay Bowers, who had her hand up.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I don't use WebEx very often, so there's a learning curve here.
You're not alone.
There. I do have 3 questions. Maybe I'll ask a couple of them. Strategy C references creating a mixed income housing toolkit and looking at the UHS and trying to figure out what are priorities for year 1, what do you want to accomplish for year 1. I haven't figured that quite out yet, so I was interested to know, is that a year 1 priority, or it is a longer term priority, what the timeline for that is. Another concern among those that work in this housing space is the expiration of low-income housing tax credits, affordability restrictions. And I didn't see much information in the plan about who's watching that, monitoring that. What do you know about what's due to expire in the next 5 years? I'd like to know, I guess, if there's somebody in the division that's keeping an eye on that, and that will be part of the planning for priorities for the next couple of years. And then the last one is a quick question. You mentioned performance metrics, but they're not outlined in the UHS, or I didn't find the page that they're on. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start with that first question. That is an action that we are working on through this short to medium term of building that toolkit for mixed income housing, so that we can create that tool and get more mixed income housing development throughout Nashville. And I'll take this opportunity to also share again that on the implementation plan, we do have our timelines for the different actions. They're broken up between short, medium, and long. And so short is 1 to 3 years, medium is 3 to 5 years, and then long is 5+ years. So I just wanted to share that again. And then for your second question about preservation, one of our strategies and actions actually is to monitor and maintain our database of income restricted housing, and that would include our low income housing tax credit properties. And so we want to also see when these properties are set to expire, and that's where another action comes in with the preservation pool, where we can have a group of developers or owners come in at those near those expiring dates and try to keep that affordability by taking over that ownership of that property or that project, and maintaining that affordability, or having other tools that can help promote affordability for that longer term. And then your final question, if you're still unmuted, do you mind asking it again, just so that I make sure I'm responding?
Right, you mentioned that you'll have metrics, the division will
Okay.
have metrics. And I'd like to know what those are, if they're in this 200+ page document, where they are. That's the question.
Perfect. Yes, thank you so much. Just wanted to make sure I was answering the correct question there. So performance metrics can be found on what I like to call the front page of each strategy. So at the beginning of each strategy section, there should be a table that has the performance metrics there, but we're also looking to track those performance metrics on our affordable housing dashboard as well to have a way to track that.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for coming and for asking your questions.
You're welcome.
And then I think maybe Susie again, if that's correct with the order. Susie, you might have had your hand still raised, but wanted
Yes,
to
it
give you
was
the
still
opportunity.
raised. I just need to take it down. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. No worries at all. And do we have any other hands up in the chat? Or any other questions in the chat that I don't see? Oh, yes. Susie, the strategy is set up with our timelines in that implementation plan with the agencies and people responsible. And within there, you can also find the resource needs that we'll have. I saw your question come through the chat as well. One question that I'll pose to the group as well is, how would you like to stay involved as the strategy moves into action? Again, this is supposed to be a living strategy or living document that responds to both market conditions as well as the needs of our neighbors. And so we want to know what effective and inclusive participation would look like for you or the communities that you serve. And can we have Susie unmute again?
Well, again, I'm homeless coordinator at MDHA, so that's where my comments and my reflections will be centered. There are a number of ways to report back to and include participation from providers and housing agencies out there that are focusing on homelessness. People can stay involved as long as they are on what is called the Continuum of Care listserv in the city. There's about 1,000 email addresses on that listserv. And a lot of the folks that are in on these meetings, on this meeting today, actually are on it. If that information can be shared on a regular basis via the listserv, that would be great. And invitations extended to those folks, then you would probably cover most of the waterfront in terms of folks that were trying to house people and keep them housed. And then the participation could also look like coming, or either maybe a staff member coming, say, every quarter or every 6 months to various meetings. The Homeless Planning Commission is one of them. That's the governance body sort of for the city, but there's a much larger group that convenes every couple of months at the mission. And I would say there are 75 to 100 folks that come to those meetings, and they would love to get a regular update on progress, particularly as it relates to affordable housing that is developed and new out there for folks who are even zero income to 30%. And particularly focusing on embracing the homeless providers to see if those folks can be referred.
Great. Yes.
Hey, Susie. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, my name is Daryl, and we will come to those meetings that you're having at the mission and being more involved in that going forward.
Yes, thank you, Susie, for sharing. Then I think Carrie Gornick, you can ask her to unmute. There we go.
Thanks, Travis, and thanks, Daryl. I would definitely reiterate, I'm from Homeless Services as well. I would definitely reiterate what Susie said, but I would also say that I don't think a lot of Homeless Services leadership goes to those COC meetings anymore. So the leadership's who's going to be able to, make sure programs are coordinating with the efforts. So I definitely need to make sure that you're reaching out to that leadership. Since a lot don't go to those meetings anymore. So I'm sure Office of Homeless Services could give you those email addresses and contact information.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other ideas of how you would like to stay involved with how this strategy moves into action and how we start to implement it? Okay, well then, are there any other thoughts or comments that you'd like to share? We'd love to hear any other feedback as well. And yes, Susie, there will be updates throughout the implementation process, through the annual policy priorities and also through various community engagement events that will provide those updates along the way. We will still need to plan out what all of those events do look like, but we'll make sure to share those events once they're planned and once they're scheduled. And that's a good moment for us to plug our listserv as well. You can sign up for updates on the Housing Division webpage to be added to our contact list for when we have events or updates on the UHS as well. Looks like Lucille has their hand up. Can we ask them to unmute?
Lucille, I've sent the request to unmute. You will have to unmute yourself on your end. Travis, it looks like they took their hand down.
Hi, thank you for the update, Sade. Are there any final call for any thoughts or comments, any responses to these feedback questions before we head out? Well, then with that, I will give you all 30 minutes back in your day. I want to express my appreciation for attending today's public presentation. And again, we ask, before we head out, it looks like Lucille's question was put through the chat of timing of the annual policy and the mayor's budget. The annual policy priorities will be posted at the beginning of each new fiscal year. And we'll track with the budget. Once that's finalized, we'll be able to have our annual policy priorities out. But again, I want to express my appreciation for you joining us today, and ask that you do share the remaining events and opportunities with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and please share any feedback that may come to you after this meeting through that feedback form. And if you have any questions about the Unified Housing Strategy, you can reach out to us at unifiedhousingstrategy@nashville.gov, and we'd be happy to stay in contact. So with that, thank you again, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.